Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. We're just going to read a pauri together. So if you can read it along with me, then read it along with me. Otherwise, just listen. Pauri he achut he par brahm avinashi avinash he puran he sarv Gurtas he sangi he nirankar he nirgun sab tek he gobind he gun nidan jak sada vivek he aparampar har hare hai pihovan har he santan ke sada sang nidaraya dar हे ठाकुर हाँ दास रो मैं निर्गुण गुण नहीं कोई नानक दीजै नाम दान राखो यह परोए वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह. So the topic of the first lecture is the importance of good Sangha. So I think since it's a Khalsa camp in the West, usually they request that we do this mostly in English, but I'm going to be going back and forth because my English mukh jandi hundi hai. I can't say that in English, right? So that's how it's going to be. So if anything you don't understand, just ask questions. You put your hand up and I'll re-say whatever I said in English, in Punjabi or in Punjabi English, whatever. So the topic of today is the importance of good Sangha. It's a really interesting topic because for the last maybe 2 years, because of coronavirus, a lot of us haven't been able to go to Sangat. Or we know of people who haven't been able to go to Sangat at all. And we've seen everywhere that the Sangat has really suffered a lot. So this is a good topic and it's a good discussion point for that. So the first, I want to start off with this pankti. Bin bhaga sat sangna labbe, bin sangat mail prijay diyo. The reason why is because when if I think back to my first kind of experience of Sikhi. When I was young, I was just coming into Sikhi. I think this was 2001, 2002, maybe 2004. 2004. This is when this was from. I went on a Khalsa cruise, and so before this, I was very young and I didn't know much about Sikhi. But I started wearing like a chola and I started learning Gatka. So I was interested in Sikhi, but I didn't know too much, and I didn't know about the Gurbani aspect of Sikhi, right? So I thought it was cool. So I wanted to come and like learn about Sikhi, right? But I didn't think that the whole Gurbani aspect, right? That was foreign to me. And before that, I never actually listened to Kirtan properly. You know, we'd go to the Gurdwara and Kirtan karte, but I didn't really understand Gurbani at all. There used to be Simran on the weekends and on Saturdays and Sundays, on Friday nights. And so I knew I could like sing along with the Simran, right? Because that's easy. But whenever they say like any Gurbani Pankti, and that just would go over my head, and I didn't really like care too much about that. I was so young, I didn't know anything about it. But I remember at this one, this Khalsa cruise, she read this shabd, Bin Bhaga Sat Sangna Labbe. And it's the same tune that everyone reads, right? Kafi mashhoor tune hai, sare ye tune padhte hunde hai na. Wahi sab, everyone, if you probably hear it, if you think about it. From then, I remember listening to that shabd, and this is one of those kind of experiences which I remember from when I was younger. I didn't understand it at the time, but I remember, I can hear it now if I try to think back. I can hear the same tune and her doing Kirtan, I know where I was, everything, I remember the experience. And it's interesting because after that, I think I've heard this shabd maybe like 1 million times, right? Every kid learns this shabd, and whenever we have Kirtan, every kid, maybe in the same Kirtan, there will be 3 or 4 people that do the same shabd, and this is a main shabd, right? So, you know, because I'm a manmukh, right? So, I used to get bored, right? Thinking that dware shabd padhta hai bada hai na, ohi tune padi jande, tune change kar do, right? Now like, you know, thodi deer to vakra hona chahiye, then in a row they're all reading the same shabd, right? So I didn't understand, like, of course I knew, yeah, we bin Bhaga Sat Sangha Labbe, without Pag we can't be Sangat. But I was taking Sangat for granted because I was in such a situation where every day I was in Sangat, right? Whenever I wanted to go to Sangat, I could just go. There's no kind of like nothing holding me back, so it was very easy. I think from when I was born, my mom used to take me to the Gurdwara and we used to go to Sangat there, and then over time, my Sangat has changed, and I've met new Guru Sikhs, and my journey in Sikhi has also gone through those phases, different places, different times. Those things were all needed, right? Those different Sangats were needed for me to develop in my Sikhi, to develop into who I am now, right? And to basically find where I'm supposed to be. And wherever Vaheguru wants to send us next, right? Vaheguru Majiya. So this was kind of like a foreign thought that, yeah, there could actually be something that would stop you from going to Sangat. But then after this whole coronavirus thing happened, so like in 2 years, there's no Sangat, right? And for a certain amount of time, we were stuck in India. So we went to India right before the December. It came out in February, right? Started in February. We had got into India in January. So in February, we started hearing news that there's this pandemic everywhere. People are getting sick. And then there was rumors that the flights were going to get cancelled. And then we got stuck in India. So it wasn't that bad because we were all together. So Sasai Samgati Katti Sigi, Tesi Katti Pendra Sige, it was no big deal, right? We used to get together every single day, Svere Kirtan Hunda Si, Dek Shakde Si, Dene Si Katti Baithi Hasi Ande Si, right? So it was no big deal. It wasn't like that foreign for me. But what happened is that some of our Singhs got a flight earlier than everybody else. And it was like you had no choice over when you could come back. Dono flight mein auna pena si. So uno ko flight pehla mil gayi, wo chale gaye sam chhad ke. Then I remember that I was like, oh man, I lost my Sangat, right? And now I can do nothing to get it back. And really now it's just, and then that shabd struck me. And I remember after coming back from India, it was like a few weeks, I think I was there after that, maybe a month actually. And we came back to Canada, and then even then we had to quarantine for about 2 weeks. And then the day we went back to Sangat, I remember just thinking the shabd and then, even if I think about it now, I can't stop crying, right? So then you realize how fortunate we actually are. And even myself, I think back, like, I've been taking advantage of having Sangat and not actually taking the full profit of being there, right? We sometimes don't realize, Kirtan ho raha, there's so much that we can take out of that. Like, I can give you 100 lectures, and that won't change you as much as one pankti of Gurmani will. If you just hear one pankti of Gurmani properly during Kirtan, that's going to change you so much more than 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 lectures. And so that's really the power of Sangat, because there's so many things that you can do as yourself as a Gursikh. So you can't do an account parts by yourself, right? You can't do a full Kirtan Smarum by yourself. Who's going to make them? Who's going to go on Tabya? Who's going to play tabla with you, right? So as ourselves, by ourselves, yeah, we can do a lot, but just Sikhida mare gaya, ye Sangati mare gaya. Imagine a traveler traveling through the desert. By themselves, they'll get lost. Over time, they'll get thirsty, they won't have food. They can get, the raiders can come and take all their stuff. There's a high chance of not reaching the destination. Very high chance. I'd say the chance of reaching the destination by themselves, going through a full desert by themselves, is very low. But if the same person was to go in a kafla, in a group of travelers, then that travel becomes so much easier. Because in the group, it's pretty easy to stay on course, because everyone's helping each other stay on course. There's food, there's water, there's survival. And so that's the same thing in Sikhi. If we try to do things by ourselves, only so far we can go. Yeah, we can do our own research, we can read Gurmani, you have on your phones now, all the gyan that all the Gyanis have put together, it's all on the phone now. You just search the Pangati and you have all different translations of anybody who's done a steek, you can find all of them online. But the Sangat you can't find just through your phone. Even you listen to broadcasts, I've done that too, right? We video call each other, right? Because there's a paras kala of Sangat. Those Singh katthe baithe hunde aa dusre darbar vich. Then it's no longer yourself, you become part of a bigger oneness. And that's where your spiritual journey will have so much more leverage. You'll get so much more profit than you would by yourself. And when I think about what is good Sangat, this is what I think of. Bhai Singh ji, Mahapurush like Sant Guru Bachan Singh ji, they lived with Sangat, right? It wasn't like, you know, kalle kalle Singh बैठे तब करते Singh इकट्ठे बैठ के dance में करते सी कीर्तन करते सी. And the feeling of how Sangat should love each other, how close we should be to other Gursikhs, how Gursikhs help each other progress in spirituality. It's very highlighted by the stories of Bhai Singh, which I will touch throughout the presentation. So I wanted to kind of touch at the beginning of this of how I found Sangat. And the reason why I say how I found Sangat now is because I've always been looking for Sangat. When I was younger, when I started coming to Sangat, I started coming to like Gatka classes, and I had friends in the Gatka class, but I never ever felt like I was connected to them. Right? I wanted somebody who could understand me. I wanted to be able to feel like I'm part of something bigger, and to feel like, you know, I'm at home. And I felt love there. I felt I got a lot of help in my Sikhi, but I never felt like, you know, we were companions, like we were long lost companions. So I do go from one Sangat to another Sangat to another Sangat, and I always had that itcha in me. Guru Sahib ne kirpa kiti si. I can't explain it by myself. It's something it's preordained. But I always had this feeling that I wanted to be able to do more. You know, not just we have a kirtan de ikkathe hoiye. I wanted to know, you know, sit together as naam japiye, kirtan kariye, paat kariye. Let's travel this spiritual marg together, right? Where someone could be committed to me as committed as I am to them. And so slowly over time, I started meeting different Gursikhs, and then eventually I finally found the Sangat where I am now. And the reason why I feel like that's different is because I've been in the Sikh circles for quite a long time. But the thing that I found here, I've never found anywhere else. The difference is, if you go to Kirtan, and when you go to Kirtan, you know, everyone does Kirtan, everyone's talking to each other, afterwards we stand and we talk and stuff too, right? But I never felt like I was able to share my heart with someone else, right? And then that person could share their heart with me. I could depend on someone else for my Sikhi. They could understand what I want to do. We had the same goals. We could work together. They could push me to work harder. We could have the same Rani Bani, and we could, you know, I'd be protected from weaknesses and red. And so this is the one thing that I was blessed with Guru Sahib to be in the Sangat that I am now, is to be able to have that experience of where now, you know, we do Amritara together, and we do Gurbani Vichar together, and I can share my heart with them. I feel like I found my companions. It is Purvle Karminde. The same way that we don't choose our parents, right? We're born to our parents. Sade karma karke sanu maape milte hain. Our relatives, our siblings, the same way. We can't choose our siblings, right? We're born to our siblings. The same way we can't choose our life partner. We might think we can. We might think we can find a life companion, a husband or a wife, but we don't have that power. It's our karma. Our karma are what lead us to that. So we likhya hunda. To a certain extent, ਅਸੀਂ ਪਾਠ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਾਮ ਜਪ ਕੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ better ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਜਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਾਪ ਕਰੂਗਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਭੈੜੇ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਣ. But it's written. The same way our Sangat is also written for us. There's a group of companions who are waiting for us. And if we have that itcha, if we want to meet Sangat, then we will. I'm a testament to that. And I've seen it happen with so many other Gursikhs. It's just doing ardas every day, begging Guru Sahib for the best Sangat possible. Sachi Sangat, the Sangat of Ramane Sajjan. I remember the last two Ardasa, Penji was doing Ardas, and she said, Ramane Sajjan Baksho, hai na? It was Sangat Baksho. And it was deja vu, because I remember doing the same Ardas, right? And hearing that Ardas in Sangat too. So if we have that itcha, and we beg Guru Sahib for Sangat, then Guru Sahib will bless us with Sangat. I wanted to ask Gurman Singh to share his personal story. So, like Gurman Singh and me, how long have we known each other?
2010.
2010, yeah. So I think now it's been 11 years. We've been like soulmates together, right? Since then. so I think probably Gurman Singh can take over from here and share his experience.
Yeah, so basically everyone has their own different experience. And I have one particular that I think it probably resonates with a lot of you guys. Probably something that's similar with you guys. So Anyone want to guess my age first of all? How old do you guys think I am?
40 plus.
35,
Huh?
35 to 40.
Okay,
40 plus. 40 to 45.
This has nothing to do with the presentation, I just want to know how. I'm 30 years old. So in 1998, so from 1990 to like 1998, that's around the time that I was into Sikhi, my family was into Sikhi. I was a munna and I didn't keep my hair, ate meat, everything that a normal Punjabi kid would do in the family, right? And in 1998, that's when we started going to this class. I don't know if any of you guys are from Toronto or have been to Toronto. There's a Gurdwara there called Dixie Gurdwara. You guys may have heard of it, right? Every Friday, it was like, there was a Singh there. His name is Bhai Singh. And he started doing classes on Friday. Every Friday, he would teach about just normal Sikhi and just basic topics. And I still remember the first time I went to that class, I didn't know any Punjabi, I didn't know one word of Punjabi. And I thought, oh, ek aur baba aa gaya the bolna, unko samjh nahi aani, faida kiya hona na. And then before the lectures, there's someone talking in Punjabi and whatever. And then when he sat down, he just started talking about Sikhi, and it was just like I don't even remember what he talked about. He started speaking English, and I could understand everything. And I just like stopped. I just froze. I'm like, wow, like this is something that I really I like, right? Like, what is this? And then so slowly I started keeping my hair, and I stopped eating meat. And out of all the things that I had to stop doing, I found it hardest to stop eating meat because I loved eating chicken a lot. But then I came to a point where first my brother, he stopped, and then just looking at him, over time, I used to make fun of him a lot, right? Like, oh, what's he gonna get out of this, right? I would just like take chicken out, like eat it right in front of him and stuff like that. And eventually, what happened was that I just, from just looking at my brother, I decided, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore either, right? So first I kept my hair, then I stopped eating meat, and then I started tying a patka or whatever. And from there, I was about 8 years old. I would attend camps here and there every year, right? And you know how it is. Every time, maybe you guys have this feeling too. Every time you attend a camp, maybe during that camp, you get so excited. But what happened was that you do after the camp, right? You go back to your old ways. And so that's what exactly would happen every single year. Like I would go to a camp, and then this would happen. I would just go back to normal. But I was still in a state like I wasn't like doing anything too bad, right? And then I remember I would still go to Sangat every single Tuesday, Friday. There's a special program, Dixie Gurdwara Simran programs, and on the Friday class I would never miss. To a point where like if I had to miss it, me and my brothers are so addicted to the class that we would record. We'd get someone to record the class and we listen to it after. And so what happened was that in one of the classes, I remember the Bhai Sahib used to tell me that he always used to tell me the story about there's one student that he had, and the student would always tell Harmeet Singh that, you know what, I'm this way, I follow Sikhi, I do my Nitinam and everything, and my friends are a different way, right? But that's not going to affect me, right? And he would keep telling Harmeet Singh that, yeah, this is how it is, right? I'm not going to get affected at all. And then what ended up happening is, over time, that person got into trouble because his friends ended up robbing a store or something, and he was involved in that, and he actually went to jail. And when he came back, he apologized, and he was so regretful for what he did. And he told Harmeet Singh that, yeah, you were right this whole time. That without Sangat, if I do bad Sangat, then I'm going to only go on a bad path. And exact same thing came in my mind. Even though he told me that story, I'm like, I was thinking the same because my friends, they were all Munne. They had no interest in Sikhi. And like, we're still young, maybe it's grade 7, grade 8, di galla na. And but still they had no interest in Sikhi. But I thought that as long as like I do my own thing, it's not going to affect my personal life and their life or at school or whatever we might hang out. I still go to the Gurdwara, I still do my Japji Sahib or whatever it is. I didn't do too much at that time, but the basics I still have it covered. So that's what I would think. I didn't tell this to Harmeet Singh uncle. But I would still, that's the mindset that I had. I just never told him. And then what exactly happened is that when you went when I went to grade 9, that's when uthe gand bahut pੈ janda na schools. High schools the gand bahut pੈ janda. You guys know how it is. And I was still like grade 9, grade 10, but I used to get into a lot of fights. And then fights turned into, I actually, are we recording this right now?
Yes.
Okay, mummy ne hun dasna pena. So I'm gonna get slapped for like the last like 10 years that I missed out on. Okay, so I started like I tested with like drugs, and mostly drugs. But I would smoke weed, and then but मैं बहाना बनाता सी मैं निहंग सिंह इतना कर दे भी फर्क पैंदा है. So I would just try to justify myself. But obviously that was just like dabbling into the stuff, and it wasn't nothing serious. I wasn't like a crackhead or anything. But the fact that I still tried it, like how much like, and I still remember right after that, if I went to the Gurdwara, I couldn't even like, it was like hard to enter the Darbar Sahib. Like I couldn't even enter the Darbar Sahib. Not on the days, it just in general, like any day I would just be like, it's like my spirit was dead. Not that I had that much spirit before, but the spirit was so dead that I couldn't even enter the Darbar Sahib. So you imagine how dead someone is inside if they have that feeling, right? And then eventually, yeah, after high school, what happens is when you go to university, your friends get separated, right? The ones ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਲਾਇਕ ਨੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਅੱਗੇ university ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ. And so that's exactly what happened. I didn't have really any more that many friends with me that went to university, and I had one friend, and he was also like, we use the term with each other as a part-time Sikh, right? Part-time Sikh, matlab we keep dadi, we keep the star, but we don't like do part or anything like that. That's what we were both in that category, right? And so what happens is that you guys probably experienced this. The culture among Singhs that I've seen, or I don't know what the culture is among Singhaniyan, right? You guys will know that. But it's usually that when a group gets together, they don't discuss like Sikhi, right? It's very rare. Like an armed group, this is Sardar Dekhde, the Sardar Dekhde. They don't talk about like Sikhi. They don't talk about we thode nitnem kidda ya, we part karne kitte aj thode naam kidda chalda hai, right? They usually talk about like anything other than that, right? It's sports. I'm talking about even among like Amritaris. But for some reason, when both of us were going to university, now again, mind you, none of us were not Amritari, we don't do any part. But the only discussions we had were about like philosophical thoughts on what Sikhi is. Okay, so like just normal everyday questions. What is this? What is this? And he had a little bit more knowledge of history than I did, and I used to get so like amazed of like what our history is like. And we would drive to school. It was like a half an hour drive to school every day. So imagine half an hour there, half an hour back, just talking about Sikhi. And it was just really surprising to us, even to us. I'm like, why is that all we talk about? Like, it's weird, because if we go to anywhere else, and then from that, it like grew to like, okay, now I have this like job to like, maybe I want to get back into Sikhi, like start practicing again, right? Or just to remind you that the whole drugs thing, that was only for like 2 months, right? So I was still like my basic, I was just trying to do my nitnem, like idhar mein hun matil karda siga, like maybe a hafte vich मैं 3-4 बारी है.
Like ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ.
ਹਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੂਰ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹੋ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਲਤ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਫਿਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਠੀਕ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ. And so what happened was that like eventually I had this desire that I want to like take Amrit now and come back into the soul. Actually before that, there was one more thing that happened. There was a group of like Singhs from Toronto, and they do Gatka tournaments. Baba Deep Singh, Gatka, you've probably heard of them, right? And it was like a bunch of youth, right? And we went to New York together, and I went on the trip as well. And it wasn't like any of these, like they weren't like spectacular, like with like doing Nityanem, like a lot of them. So I didn't see any of them of these things, or like within these groups, like they weren't doing like part or anything, or like getting together and like doing Simran or anything like that. But they were just spending time together, right? And just being there, I was like, I had this thought, I'm like, okay, maybe being with Singhs is not that bad. I used to have this like thing that okay, if I made my whole group of friends, if they were just like Sikhs, my life was going to get boring. Like, boring life. Who knows what they do? They probably just like You know what it is. The ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੇਖਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੇ boring ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਡਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਤੋਂ. That was exactly what I was like. Even though I had a whole life in Sikhi, but I never had a life experience of like doing of like having Sangat of like just pure Sikhs. And so at that time when I had that Sangat, just that one trip, and I was like, yeah, this is not bad, right? Like these guys have fun. They're just normal people, just like I am, right? And after that, I had this. It just kept growing and growing. And what happened after that was I want to look for more. So now if I'm at that stage, I want to drink Amrit. Now how do I get to the next stage where I'm going to take Amrit and all this stuff and start keeping ahead? And so I would go to Gurdwara to looking for like Sangha to do Amrit with. And every Gurdwara I go to is like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Like there's no one there. Like you imagine how big the Sikh community is in Toronto, right? And there's so many Gurdwaras. There's Malton Gurdwara, there's Dixie Gurdwara, Glidden Gurdwara. छोटे गुरुद्वारे तो कई अनगिनत ने हैं ना ते पर गल नहीं बनती सी. I used to go to every Gurdwara, and I remember I went to there was one missionary Gurdwara, and I'm like I want to इत्थे मैं कोई शुरू करना चाहता ना. It was like a छोटा गुरुद्वारा नाल दी घर दे नाल दी. They're like किन्ने बजे इत्थे होना. मैं कहा 4 बजे. कहते भी कोई तू काम ते नहीं जाना भी देखते कहते कि होना तुझे ना. I'm like चलो फिर I understood that these guys didn't want me there, right? And I would try to find different things. I'm like different people. Like try to do Amrit Vela. Like I would try to find youth, and it was just so hard because there was no one that was committed, right? I found like a small group of people. Then eventually, and we would do Amrit Vela, and it would be like something like hardcore. Like we would go from like 12 to like 7. But then it was like this, that it would be like hardcore for 1 month, and then they would go off to their jobs or whatever. They would be like, and it would go literally to 0. And then what happens when you don't have that Sangat? Literally the same thing would happen to me because I could only do how much they took me, how far they took me. So I would go from going from 100 to 0 as well. And then eventually, I just kept doing ardas and benti to Guru Sahib ji, manu Sangat chahiye, right? I need Sangat. And specifically, I used to ask for Sangat because without Sangat, I didn't know the clear concept of like Gurbani, but mere man ch bhi gal sigi like this is not going to happen unless I have like a committed group of people with me to do it, right? I can't do this by myself. I used to write out schedules, Smogam schedules, like maine part karne hai, and then I would just go out and I would look at the schedule and I would just sleep after, right? And so then eventually what happened is just by we can't call it coincidence. We obviously it's destiny. I met by Preetam Singh, and he used to go to Gatka and I used to go to Gatka, and then he told me to take Amrit from some certain there's a Gurdwara there, Tapoban side. And then I was actually learning about like keeping Sardlo Babek and all this stuff. ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਤਪੋਵਨ ਤੋਂ. ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਹੁਕਮ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ Sardlo ਰੱਖਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ. And then he's just like ਨਹੀਂ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿਣਗੇ ਚੱਲ ਜਾ. ਉਹ ਮੈਂ I didn't even know him at that time, right? So I was already preparing. I was like ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਸੀ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਪੇਸ਼ ਹੋਣਾ, but I was like scared, right? So I went there, ਫਿਰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਹੁਕਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਵੀ ਹਜ਼ਾਰ ਲੋਕ ਵੀ ਰੱਖਣਾ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ. And ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਛਕਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਭੱਜ ਗਿਆ. And but they were really nice. They gave me the number and everything and told me ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਤਾਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੇਬੇ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੀ ਆ. I don't know, I'm going to next day ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ, I don't know, like ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਛਕ ਸਕਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ. So I just told them ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਮਨੂੰ risk it, right? ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਕੁਛ ਤੇ ਢਿੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਹੈ. And so what happened is that they gave me the number and they said they were really nice about it. They said whatever, you need help, you can just come to us. And then I was just reading online, and then I used to, so the same thing, I didn't talk to Bhai Sahib after that, but I was on the Gurmat Babek forum, and you guys probably know Bhai Kulbir Singh ji, right? And I'm a really shy guy, right? I don't know what courage was like filling me to like start talking to these like random people. And I messaged Bhai Sahib and I said I want to come to your house and like let's just discuss like some stuff about like what is Babek and all this stuff. Maybe you can clear up my mind. And again, once that happened was when I talked to Bhai Sahib, he cleared out like a lot of doubts in my mind. And then that's when I came back to Preetam Singh ji, and I ended up taking Amrit at the Dixie Smagam in 2010. And from then, it was me and Bhai Preetam Singh ji, and we used to be with each other. And then finally, it was something like Untitled Sangat Pakki ho, because he used to do his Amrit Vela, and he was, I don't want to big him up too much, right? So, chalo baat mein but for now, I'll just tell you, like he was only in grade 10. So imagine in grade 10, he was keeping, I think, but before that, I think it was in grade 9. I don't like talking about ages, I always remember things by like grade level. So in grade 9, he was keeping Babek and everything, and that, when we met, I was in first year university, so he was 2 years, I think grade 11 he was in, or grade 12 or whatever. And yeah, it was grade 11 when we first met. And then he was keeping Babek and he was keeping his Amrit Vela. And it wasn't like, we were still, थोड़े दिन तक होता सीगा, कई बारी मैं जाना उठे उन्हें नहीं पहुँचना नहीं, कई बारी वो जाता सीगा, तो मैं पहुँचना नहीं सीगा. But it was still like 80%, 90% होता ठीक हो गया, ना कितना फर्क पे. And then from there, the next step just kept going higher and higher, right? And so that's when we started going to Bhai Gurman Singh. We all started doing Sangat together with him. And when, as a group, we started doing Sangat together, and then it just became better and better because Bhai Sahib ji he used to be very strict that 2:30 baje uthna hai, 2:30 to late nahi hona hai. Matlab je banda, if you were waking up at 2:35, 3:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, वो बेइज्जती वाली गल होती थी ना. And not only is that, ਹੁਣ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਵੀ ਲੇਟ ਕਿਉਂ ਆਏ ਨਾ. ਬਾਕੀ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਾਲ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਸੰਗਤ 'ਚ. ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਪ ਲੇਟ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਅਗਰ ਬੇਇੱਜ਼ਤੀ ਵਾਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਵੀ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਵੀ ਹਾਂ ਲੇਟ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਇਹੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਕਿਉਂ ਲੇਟ ਹੋਇਆ ਨਾ. ਮੈਂ ਕੀ ਜਵਾਬ ਦੇ ਸਕਦਾ ਯਾਰ. For someone who's been keeping up with the Vela for 20 years, what kind of excuse can you give, right? There's no excuse. And our journey then began as a jatha, you can say. We were together, and every single day we would and eventually it would become to a time we would start doing small groups together, and then our group would get bigger. There's more people who were taking Amrit, and then our group got bigger. And as that happened, we started holding more smagams, more like on the weekends we'd hold smagams, and on the weekdays we would challenge each other. We like, okay, aap inne part karne hain, and je baki karde fir thonu to karna pehna hai na. Unless you're a really bad person, you're just gonna lie and say मैं part कीते हैं ना. कई बंदे सीखे सड़े जाते थे तो करते सीखे, पर वो फिर बारों बात निकल गए. Eventually they get exposed, right? So they were like, okay, well 100 part करने हैं, 236 part करने हैं, इतने part करने हैं एक दिन च, and then you'd have to do it, because if you didn't do it, then it's really embarrassing. कि सारे बाकी तो करते हैं, तो उठे बच्चे भी मेरे तो छोटे भी सीखे, वो तो भी इतने ज़्यादा part करते थे, जे मैंने की तो कहीं बेइज्जती वाली गल होनी सी. So I would finish those smagams, Guru Sahib ki kirpa naal, Sangat ki kirpa naal, and then it was just from there, it's just keep pushing each other, right? So like imagine anywhere. I remember there was this entrepreneur, and he was saying that the only way he would succeed is when he got rid of all of his garbage friends, right? He said that they were bringing me down to a level that I wasn't able to succeed, right? And he said something like, if you look at all your like 10 closest friends and get the average of what they are, that's what you're going to become. He was thinking in terms of success as money-wise, right? But we can look at success in terms of kamai-wise, okay? And gurmut kamai. What's your friend circle like? And you take the average of those friends. So you're most likely the average, even if you're the best. Like what benefit are you going to do if people who are below you, right? Not that you shouldn't do sangat of people, not everyone. But I'm saying that you should keep your standards to a certain level, that I want to achieve some goals, so I should have sangat of elder, because there's always going to be someone better than you, right? Whatever you do. So find those people and have them inspire you. Because if you don't find those people, then you don't want to be the highest person, right? And you don't want to try leading, right? That's really hard, because it's a lot of pressure, especially if you're just getting to Sikhi. So basically that's it. And now from you can see how far Guru Sahib ki kirpa now has taken the group that we had was just a small group, and we come to making it's like pretty amazing how it was just 3 of us, like 4 or 5 of us, come to making like an impact of so far that if we go to Punjab, there's people that just recognize us everywhere, right? And that's only through the power of Sangat. I couldn't have done it alone. Bhai Sahib couldn't do it done alone. Anyone in our jatha couldn't have done it alone. But the only way we were able to do it was because we were able to gain the strength of each other, right? Strength in numbers. What's the number? That's some quote for one of these teams, basketball teams. I forget it. Yeah, the Golden State Warriors. Strength in numbers, right? Always be together. That's how you're going to succeed. No one succeeds on their own.
So I remember being on the journey with Bhai Gurman Singh and seeing that, and it was very inspiring. So it's always like this, like within our Sangat we have this kind of an open relationship. So if I do a lot of part one day, tomorrow morning I might feel like I have part kitte hai na, main jaake dassuna sara nu. But then I sit there and I hear other people saying maine part kitte aap ha dusne part karate, dusne part karate, and I'm like chalo bhi ab ready dena dassana na jade cut se. So in that kind of a environment, you can't get home, you can't get hankar, because no matter how much part you're doing, there's always someone doing more than you, and it's back and forth. One day you might do more part, next day another person is going to do more part. Now you're going to want to do more as well. If you that's what Paisa was saying. If we try to do sangat with Gursikhs who are more elevated than us, who are higher than us, then we're always going to be striving to be better. If we're just content with being where we are and not increasing our spirituality at all, then nothing will happen. We have to make that own effort ourselves and go to Sangat and find where that honey is. So that's why this Pankti, I decided to quote this one. Sat Sangat mein rahiya madho jaise madat mukhira. Just like a bee finds the honey, finds the pollen, the same way that we should be in Sangat. We should not want to leave Sangat at all. It should be in our minds that we want to be in Sangat at all times, because that's the perfect place. Sangat is where Vaheguru is happy with you, right? Sangat is where you can meet Guru Sahib. And if you want to meet Vaheguru, how are you going to meet Vaheguru if you try doing it by yourself? You can't. The only way to meet Vaheguru is through Sangat, with the help of other Gursikhs, collectively. Because let's say, okay, appa kirtan mein baithe hain. Maybe I am not very pleasing to Vaheguru, but maybe somebody in Sangat is very pleasing to Vaheguru. Now during Kirtan, if this Gursikh, in the level lagi, in the dhyan tek gya na da, mere bhi farak pauga. Jadon Vaheguru ji unnu darshan deਣਗੇ, main bhi naal baith ke main bhi darshan kar lunga. So that was always the thing that I had in my mind. I don't want to miss any Kirtans, right, or any Amrit Teras, because ho sakta kal nu kisi ko prakash ho jaye, main miss kar janga na. I want to see it, right? Of course, I'm not worthy of that, but maybe at least I can be there when it happens to other Gursikhs. I can be there when they're experiencing Vaheguru, when they're experiencing Anand of Gurbani. And just seeing that experience of Gursikhs, singing Gurbani and doing Khand parts and basically having love with Vaheguru, seeing that experience, it gives you more love for Vaheguru too. So this is a picture of one of our Kirtans, and the main focus really is Guru Sahib. It's not just about this Gursikh, that Gursikh. The focus is Guru Sahib, but it's not possible for a lone traveler to go through the desert by himself. It's not possible for me as this small being who has no gun, right? I have no good quality. How am I going to be pleasing to Vaheguru? But as a collective Sangat, then we can please Guru Sahib and meet Guru Sahib. So this is just, I wanted to highlight this story from the life of Bhai Singh Ji. Purab jan ke mile sanjogi ante ko na sahai. Really, our companions are written in our sanjog. And I'm not sure if many of you have read the books of Bhai Singh Ji. One of his very close companions was Bhai Singh Ji. So I'm just going to highlight one story which I read, and every time I think about that story, it makes me tear up as well. The Paisa writes that he was going to, him and his Gursikhs with him, they were traveling somewhere. उन्होंने फिर खिंच पई, कहते भी कोई खिंच पै रही है, आप जाके देखिए. कहते भी नाम जब भी गए थे, they kept going wherever they were being pulled to, and they ended up at the railway station. They ended up at the railway station and they were wondering, okay, where does Vaheguru want us to go? Where does Guru Sahib want us to go? Is there some spiritual force which is pulling us? This might seem very foreign, but if you listen to your heart, you can hear where Vaheguru wants you to go. So they're listening. They asked the conductor to give them a random ticket. They mantra pad ke ticket de de. तो उन्होंने फिर जिथे बलवाल सिंह सी अंबाला कट दी उन्होंने डी टिकट. So सिंह कहते चलो उत्थे जाने हैं. They went and they started doing sangat. They went to Balmal Singh Ji's house. उत्थे उन्होंने संगत कीती, कीर्तन कीता, बहुत ज़्यादा आनंद आया. उत्थे चलो फिर कीर्तन कर रहे थे. दूसरे दिन भाई साहब कहते भी आपां वापस चले. ਤੇ ਬਾਬਾ ਮਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਿਰਾਗ ਆ ਗਿਆ because he didn't want Sangat to leave, right? ਮਸਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ in this desert you finally found some water, right? And now they're saying it's Kalim, right? So the way the story is written, Paisab says that they went to see where Bhai Mal Singh Ji was. He was at a well taking out water for Sangat. ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰੋਈ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪੀ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਬਾਕੀ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਲੰਬੇ ਪੈ ਗਏ, ਕੱਚੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਤੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਪੈ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਰੋਈ ਜਾਣ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੇਰੀ ਖੰਨੋਂ ਮੌ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਹੰਡਾਉਂਦੇ। That's the kind of love that Gursikhs have for each other. And if we wonder, like, how do we build that love? That love is built through Gurbani, through Naam. When we sit together and we do Naam Abhyas, we sit together and we do Kirtan, we do Gurbani part together, that builds love. And if we do that, consider, let's say now, there's one Gursikh who you're doing part every single day. You're going to be much closer to that Gursikh than if you have somebody you meet maybe once a week or once a month. So if you want to build that love and Sangat that Gursikhs like Bhai Singh Ji, Bhai Mal Singh Ji had, then we have to do the things that they used to do. What did they do? They did like crazy Kirtan, right? They just kept doing Kirtan for many hours without getting tired. They just kept doing Kirtan, Naam Japi Gaye, Path Kari Gaye. And so if we want to have that same kind of love and Sangat and the same outcome of the Sangat, we have to put the same input. So this is the love of Gursikhs, and this is the one thing that we felt was different, that I felt different in the Sangat that I'm in now compared to other times, was now that, if you feel there's a love where you can open up yourself to your fellow Gursikhs. And if you open yourself up to your fellow Gursikhs, they'll open themselves up to you as well. And so one of the questions that was posed was, how do we find Sangat? How do we create this love in Sangat? Is you have to put in the love yourself. Ganda Preetam Mithe Bol. If you speak sweet words to each other, you do Gurbani part together, right? If you're doing Kirtan together, you're waking up Tamatra together, then of course you're going to love each other more and more and more. It's also just not in terms of Sangat, but even in your personal life, in your own families, with your husband, with your wife, with your children. If we want to be close to them, we want to have successful marriages, successful family lives, we want our children to respect us and to love us when they grow up. The way to do that is to do part together, right? To do Amrita together. Do Sukhi Salat part together. Have a spiritual journey together. It shouldn't be, one person from the family is going to Kirtan, the baki sare kare sute hoye, right? Bachche nu chalo pona aaj saun jange bachche thakke hoye. Apa Kirtan ja ji. If you're going to Kirtan, you're going there because you're getting something from there, right? Sangat to kuch milta hai. So why wouldn't you want to give that to your children as well? Why wouldn't you want to give that to your husband or your wife? You should inspire them to come with you, take them with you.
With regards to, I want to talk about love of Gursikhs. So it's really, really important that we have this love for Gursikhs, and don't ever distinguish that if I love Guru Sahib Ji or I'm going to Singh nu kat pyar karna hai, or it's the same thing, because Guru Sahib Ji is only happy if you make his Gursikh happy. So I sometimes even think to myself, like, what's the most important gun that I could think of, like what's really like what would take me to Sachkhand basically, right? And I'm like, I could think about having a lot of effort, or like maybe I have a lot of virag or whatever, but when I boil it down to, I think it's having that love or like loyalty towards Gursikhs, meaning that if I'm doing part, if I'm doing Japji Sahib the part, or Gursikh to koi phone call hai na, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਮਜਬੂਰੀ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਓ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਹੈਲਪ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ, ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ. That's your first mission, right? And the more connections you make, the more love you have from Gursikhs. And imagine you're making love with all these, you're making friendships with all these Gursikhs, and they're loving you back. What happens? Dargah vich ki hona hai, what's going to happen to those Gursikhs that are much higher than you? You think they're ever going to forget you? So what would be more important? Look at this, like the Sakhi of Professor Uday Singh. Have you guys heard of Professor Uday Singh? He is a famous teacher in Toronto, and he did Sangat of Bhai Untitled Chapter. And when one time they were together, and the story goes that Professor Uday Singh, what had to do with
Professor Uday Singh was doing these math examinations, and there's a rule in India that it's like one of the highest examinations. And if you do the examination, you can only do it 3 times. And after that, they don't let you do it ever again. So उन्होंने इतना पैसे को पहले पूछा उन्होंने कि मैं हो करना चाहता हूँ पैसे नहीं रहने दे ਵੀ ਨਾ ਕਰ, ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਮੰਨੀ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਕਰੀ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ 3 ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ। ਫਿਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਟ੍ਰੇਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਹਾਸੇ 'ਚ ਪੁੱਛ ਲਿਆ ਵੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਬਣਿਆ, ਤੇ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੀ ਬਣਿਆ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਦਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਤਾਂ ਅਗਲੇ ਜਨਮ 'ਚ ਹੀ ਸਹੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਜਨਮ ਤੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ, ਅਗਲੇ ਜਨਮ 'ਚ ਸਹੀ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉੱਚੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਬੋਲ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਮ ਕਾਹੇ ਆਵੇਂਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਦੁਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ, ਬਹੁਤ ਹਮ ਕਾਹੇ ਆਵੇਂਗੇ। ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਉਦੈ ਸਿੰਘ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਬਚਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਵੀ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤਾਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਇੱਥੇ। ਉਹ ਹੱਸਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਚਿੰਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੀ ਆ, ਸੱਚਖੰਡ ਚੱਲਿਆ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਤਾ। ਸੋ that's the kind of shraddha you should have for Gursikhs, right? And when we have that shraddha, those Gursikhs will come into our life.
Yeah, that's why it's so important. What could be more important than having a Brahmgyani like supporting, right?
Yeah.
If you're, that comes from the, always remember that Sangat is first, because Sangat is what's going to help you.
This is another Gursikh, Dr. Basant Singh. He's also a Ranglay Sajjan. Pai Saranti Singh has written about him in his post at Ranglay Sajjan. I love this Gursikh, right? Every time I look at his picture, something happened. मैंने तो बहुत ज़्यादा आनंद होता देख के बहुत ज़्यादा सोने लगते हैं। तो his story is kind of interesting because he fell in love with Bhai Saranti Singh ji without meeting Bhai Sahib, which is even different. It's like he never met Bhai Sahib and he fell in love just by hearing about Bhai Sahib. Bhai Sahib was in jail at the time. ते कार सेवा हो रही सी थे दरबार साहब दी, और जो अरदास हुई ते डॉक्टर बसंत सिंह was standing in अरदास ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਭਾਈ ਸਰਵਨਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਜੇਲ੍ਹ 'ਚ ਫਸੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ, ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕਰਨੀ, ਪੰਥ ਨੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ। ਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬਸੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ loved Bhai Sahib so much, the second he heard Bhai Sahib's name, he fainted because he had so much virag for Bhai Sahib, and it was something from Pischle Jan. It wasn't that he'd read a lot of stories about Bhai Sahib or anything. He'd heard from other Gursikhs about Bhai Sahib, but it was a love that's unexplainable. It goes even more above any other love we can feel in this world. So what happened was Dr. Basant Singh was yearning Bhai Sahib darshan so much that he got himself arrested. So he went and he did some agitation which made him get arrested, and he went into the jail. ਤੇ Bhai Sahib ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ Dr. Basant Singh just fell at Bhai Sahib's feet. Bhai Sahib ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਚਿਹਰਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਉਹ ਆ ਕੇ ਬਸ ਪੈਰੀ ਪੈ ਗਏ ਤੇ ਰੋਈ ਗਏ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪੀ ਗਏ। ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਖੜੀ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਏ, when he looked at his face, then ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ he recognized that this is his ਸਾਥੀ from previous lives. So this is the kind of love that Gursikhs have for each other. This Pankti, it really inspires me. Jan Nanak ko har mel jan te vek hum jivaye. Really, what's the point of living if we can't have darshan of Sangat? Right? We're not able to have darshan of Guru Gobind Singh Ji by ourselves. I'm not. मेरी अवस्था नहीं हैगी. But I can look at Sangat. I can see Gursikhs who look like Guru Sahib. So that's how love we should have for Gursikhs. Imagine we go to Guru Sahib's Darbar and Guru Sahib sitting there, right? We can actually see Guru Sahib, and we can look in the Darbar. Jo Singh pyar mein tar baithe hunde a, that's Guru Sahib, right? That's Guru Sahib's Vartara. So this is just my cute part of the presentation. So these are the fruits of Sangat, and the fruits of Sangat which I've seen myself, just even on a worldly kind of scale, a worldly / spiritual. So these are our kids, and they're all really cute. But it was not possible for us. So this is, go back to the picture before that. So this on the left side here, on your guys' left side, this is Prahlad Singh. This is by Gurman Singh's son, and that's Deva Singh, is my son. And so since we all live in Sangat together, like for us, our kids don't know that they're not related to each other, right? They don't know that his kids call me Bapuji, and Deva Singh calls him Pitaji, right? So they think that we're like brothers. They don't know any difference. And for them, their first relatives are their Sangat, the other Gursikh bache in the Sangat. And if we think, if I want to raise my children to be great Gursikhs, how can I do that? The best way is to keep them in Sangat as much as possible. Have their first companions be other Gursikhs in Sangat, and to instill respect for older Gursikhs in them. This is a very important thing. So a lot of you guys don't have children, but the older people can tell you, they can attest for this. The generation nowadays, they don't know how to respect their elders at all. उन्हें नहीं पता लगता कि किधर सामने बोलना किधर सामने नहीं बोलना जो जवाब के में देना, right? They treat elders as if they're the same age as them, but they have to know that elder Gursikhs, we have to respect them. And so if you instill that kind of respect for Gursikhs in your children at a young age, then they'll know when they're older, idna Singha na vatti da, idna Singha da satkar kari da. So it's very important. So this is just my son on the right side and my daughter, and so we have that kind of this competition between ourselves, right? That I want to make sure that my kids don't fall behind his kids, right? If his kids start doing Kirtan, I want to make sure my kids learn Kirtan too, because they're going to get left behind otherwise. If my kids start learning how to read, then he's going to want his kids to learn how to read Gurmani too. So it helps us. That wouldn't be possible otherwise. If I was by myself, I wouldn't do too much effort with my children, right? But the fact that now the other kids who are going to be doing more than them, I want them to keep up with them, keep up in the pace, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, so they can all do Kirtan and Part together. So this is a picture of a Nisari, the pind in India, where we have made a Vidyala. So in this picture, it's interesting because you would think that these are all of our Toronto Gursikhs, because we all look like this, but most of these things are from that pind. So I think 5 of us are, I'm there, like Gurman Singh and our wives are there. Otherwise, everybody else is from India. They're all from the pind or from nearby pinds. And this is the kind of the experiment that we kind of had in India of trying to recreate what we could do here, there, by having love for other Gursikhs and showing them the experience of having like a Sangat lifestyle. Of, doing Amadhyar together every day, doing Kirtan, then if after work, getting together again, Sham nu kathe hoke, Sodar ji, Chauki Lani, they having langar together, and instilling that kind of Sangat lifestyle, and it makes a difference. So this is one of the kind of points that I wanted to leave you guys with. Whenever we think about any aspect of our life, anything that we want to succeed in, be it work, school, sports, anything, if you're not committed, you're not going to get very far, right? You're going to do it for a little while. After that, you might just stop. So if you want to get something out of Sikhi, you have to have a commitment. And the point that I want to bring up is having commitment for Sangha. Like I hear now in Vancouver area, there's some Najwan who I used to know from a long time ago, and they no longer come to Kirtan anymore. And it astonishes me. Why not? Why aren't you going to Kirtan? Why would you miss Kirtan? It doesn't make any sense to me. Because if you have a commitment for Sangat, then you'll never miss. And if everybody in Sangat is committed to the Sangat, then you can get some amazing outcomes from that. Otherwise what happens is, 5 jane aaj aaye, kal nu aaye nahi gaye, parson koi hor aa gaya. There's no you can't say, okay, yeah, Guru Singh, you're in charge of this, do this every day. Or tumha seva karni hai, tumha dekh seva karni hai, roj tumha seva karya kar, right? There's no backbone to that Sangat, right? You have to commit yourself. Sacrifice yourself for the betterment of what Sangat wants to do, for the Samagam, for Kirtan. Don't leave it to other people. Be available and be committed. Where you should be able to say, okay, tomorrow we're doing a Kirtan, and I know that these people will be there tomorrow, no matter what. Idna na hoye pata nahi kal nu kaun aaga, pata nahi koi aaga bhi nahi, but we don't know. That shouldn't be there. That thought shouldn't be there at all. We should know 100% that all of us things are going to be there tomorrow, no matter what happens. जब हम कीर्तन रखे हैं, सारे काम छाड़ के कीर्तन ते आना है, बाकी काम बाद में कर लेंगे. And that's the kind of relationship you should have with Sangat here, with your fellow Gursikhs. If you guys are doing a Kirtan, all of you should be there. Don't skip it. Don't leave it. कोई ना वो कर लेंगे, असी भोग के चल जाएंगे. क्यों? Be there at the beginning, leave at the end. How disrespectful is it to Sangat that you show up late? You think that you're more important than everybody else? Do you feel like ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੰਮ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਨੇ? ਕਿਉਂ? ਉਹ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ. Right? ਵਿਆਹ ਤਾਂ ਮੁੱਕਣੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੇ. ਕਿਸੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਅਖੰਡ ਪਾਠ ਤੇ ਜਾਣਾ, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ. But the most important thing is your spirituality. Because afterwards, no one's going to ask you, if you say, ਆਪਾਂ ਦਰਗਾਹ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਤੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਜਾਂਦਾ? ਤੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਵਿਆਹ ਤੇ ਜਾਣਾ ਸੀਗਾ. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਘਰੇ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਸੀ, ਰਾਤੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਘਰੇ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਤੇ ਗਏ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਸਵੇਰੇ ਜਾਗ ਨਹੀਂ. So imagine they're going to listen to that. So imagine like, look, you were given an opportunity And that's why I think to myself as well when I started the presentation is, I've been blessed with Sangat, but I'm not taking advantage of it. I know I can take so much more advantage of Sangat. There's so many things that I can do, so much more laha I can get from Kirtan. I can make sure I sit there the whole time and I don't get up, right? Kirtan ka sakda. Why am I falling asleep during Kirtan, right? So these are the things we have to actively try to better ourselves, and this vehicle that we've been given is for our betterment. We should take total advantage of it. So that's where we want to end our presentation. We have a YouTube channel. You guys can subscribe and watch our videos. We try to cover a lot of Gurman topics. If you have any suggestions for topics, you can suggest those. And we're here all camp, so any questions you have, anything you want to talk about, we're available, and we try to be as approachable as possible. Thank you for your time. Waalaikum Assalam.